Hey everybody, hope you're all doing well. Well, here we are back on E7s, and we're on the combustion chamber now, fellas, and I'm going to point out a few things that is a hindrance to airflow. And basically, on these combustion chambers, there's only a few spots as far as performance with airflow goes. We're kind of lucky on this one, guys. And the areas would be around the exhaust valve back here. It pinches off. And what you do here, we're going to widen this a little bit and angle this back, because what happens, the chamber has a pretty steep wall on it right here. So the air has tendency not to move around the valve very well, because there's not a lot of room for the air to get by. So it's not just as far as room, it's also that the seat peaks up here, and the way it's machined, it needs to be leveled out. So we're going to do two things. We're going to cut this back and angle this back, the combustion chamber, this way, and then it goes high right here. So as far as airflow goes, this is your main area that you have to worry about as far as I'm concerned. The rest of it, well, it's not too bad. So it depends on what size valves you put in here, but if you use a standard valve, a stock valve, they're not even that bad here. You can always just move your wall over a little bit, and I like a nice even combustion chamber, so I would taper this in. And a lot of guys say not to go all the way to here because it loses airflow. Well, I'd rather be more concerned about a nice clean combustion chamber with no sharp edges. And when you start getting around in here, it pinches off to a sharp edge. So I worry about that before I do airflow, because when you have a sharp edge, it's never good. It's a hot spot, and around here, it's not so much sharp, but it's a high peak. So we cut this back a little bit and level this in, because that would be a detonation problem. So these areas right here are just hot spots and detonation problems as far as I'm concerned. And right here is where most of your hindrance would be, is around these areas right here. So you don't have to really go crazy. You have a machining edge right here around the valve, and you really can't see that because it's very slight. But what you'd want to do in this case is just round this off and taper it into where your seat is. So, of course, you're always going to be careful when it comes to your seat. However you want to do that, you want to put a valve in there and get the majority of it done. That's fine. That's the best way for somebody that's not experienced to do. But another way you could do this is, if you're just the machining edge alone, you just take a piece of sandpaper and you could knock that down and taper that in with a piece of sandpaper. So these are things that if you're going the extra mile to do, but if you're just doing a little street cleanup and you just want a little more performance, you're like, well, I think I did enough to these heads, taking care of the exhaust and modifying everything else. Well, that'd be up to you guys. So people don't have to do exactly what I'm doing here. So I'll just put it to you that way. But what we have over here is, I've already taken care of them problems, and I do want to show you the difference where I tapered this back in here, made it where it's not as aggressive. It's more of a gentle sweep into the plug area, and I just rounded it out and brought it, leveled it in to around where the valve is on the exhaust side. And then over here, I just kind of gave it a little bit better room, angled it back a little bit, because these heads are going on a stock engine, fellas. So I'm not going to go hog wild because I don't want to take any more metal out of these combustion chambers than I have to. I'll lose compression, and the engine is stock, and we're not doing anything except putting these heads on as far as a performance gain, as far as I know right now. But I do want to show you this. I'll let you look at this, where I did cut back here and give it more room. I did round this corner in, and all I did is smooth this area here out, blend it in, and just smooth this little dimple out. So you can see from the factory, I believe, how high this chamber is where I haven't done anything. I've done absolutely nothing in here. It's filthy. And guys, once again, every segment I think I've said this, but every time I look at these heads, I just think of somebody putting these on the car like this and not having a clue. Like if you just went to the junkyard and pulled these off and put them on another vehicle, look what you'd be putting on, guys. So if somebody hasn't heard me say this, just think about that. If you were to just grab these heads and throw them on another engine without pulling the valves out or looking at them. But you can see how it would be from the factory, how the small this area is right here, and then how the seat peaks up right here. I believe you might be able to see this. I'm hoping you can. And I'm hoping that it shows up the way it really is, the way I'm explaining it. Because you can see the air would have tendency to run into this casting right here. I can actually move the head where it's catching right there. So after I took care of the machining edge right here and leveled this back, well, there's nothing there to catch, fellas. So this would be a nice transition, and it's also a horsepower gain. Now, you can level this back even more if you don't mind giving up compression. But if you're going with a stock piston and you're just doing an upgrade, putting these heads on, and you're leaving your engine with stock pistons, and you're not milling these heads, then I wouldn't bother doing this mod, because what you'll gain here, you'll lose in compression. You might see, yeah, but that's airflow. That's true. It depends on how you want to look at it, who you are, and what you're doing with the car and why you're doing it. So it's best to do everything if you can, but some guys might just say, no, I just wanted to clean up the exhaust. I'm not going to worry about that stuff. I already picked up a couple extra horsepower. So it all depends on how you want to look at it. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this segment here, fellas, and demonstrate, because I think anybody that's willing to take on doing this work themselves has enough sense to know to be careful around the seat area. And like I said, you can put valves in here or tape it and do the majority of your chamber and smooth it out all you want to. The combustion chamber you can always smooth out as much as you want to, guys. As far as if you want to do a really nice clean up in the combustion chamber, you're never going to hurt that. Same deal with the exhaust bowl. You're never going to hurt that by smoothing that out. And if you want to polish it and go the extra mile, some guys don't like that idea. I've never seen where it hurt anything if you do. How much does it pick up if you do it? I don't think polishing it really picks up anything, except for it might stop carbon from sticking to it for about 2 minutes. So that's my theory on that. But it all depends on you, how much time you have on your hands, how much time you want to spend on something, and how much work you want to put yourself through. And if these mods are worth it to you, well, all this stuff comes together and it helps. This is a little bit, this is a little bit, this is a little bit. But what happens when you put all these little bits together? Well, it adds up. And it adds up quick when you put it in a complete package, guys. I will say that. And if there's something you don't want to do that you disagree with, that's fine. Because anything you do to these heads, as long as you don't do anything extreme that's going to hinder them, as far as like just hogging something out and going crazy and oblonging your combustion chamber or something silly like that, if you just do the basic cleanups on these and use your common sense, then anything you do to these heads is going to help these heads. I will say that. But I do believe in milling these heads, no matter what, because you don't really know if they're straight unless you take a straight edge to them. And that's just one thing I always like doing, is getting the heads milled after all the work's done. That's just me. Am I telling you you have to do that? Absolutely not. But I guess I run that by you guys. I'm getting off of what I originally wanted to say because I wanted to just stay on the combustion chamber. But the light doesn't really show up. But I did, like I said, take the sharp edges off, round this in, round this back. And of course, it looks nothing like it really looks standing here. And I'm hoping that shows up. So I will say this. We're not spending any more time on the combustion chamber with this segment. I'm going to move on, and we're going to be moving on into the intake. So I'll go over this real quick. What we're going to be getting into is this. I highlighted some areas already. There's going to be a crucial area here. We're going to be cutting back the guide, and you can see the crucial area here. So these are the areas we're going to be taking care of in the intake side of the bowl. And that's going to be our next segment. So anybody following these E7 segments, this is where we're going. That's what my plan is next time. And yeah, guys, a couple guys are wondering. No, I didn't forget about the exhaust. We're going to be finishing up the exhaust. I left it rough cut, but we will be polishing this out with a sanding roll and doing some more tapering in. These are not finished, so don't get upset thinking he never finished showing the exhaust. This is going to be final, probably the final segment around there, guys. Tapering this in and actually still using the paper rolls to contour and bring this back a little bit more with the paper rolls. That's why I didn't want to go too crazy with the bits, fellas, because we're going to lose some more metal when we get in there with these paper rolls right here. So I thought I'd run that by you, give you guys a kind of wrap this up a little bit and show you I didn't forget about the exhaust. We're moving into the intake side, and I think this is enough to cover the combustion chamber. However, if anybody has any questions, just shoot me a little message. I'm happy to just answer anything I can help you with. And I'm hoping that I'm covering this enough, guys. If I'm not, you'll just have to say, hey, I wish you could have went in more detail about this, that, or the other. You won't offend me, because the whole idea of doing these segments, guys, is to help somebody, especially somebody that's never done this before. And I'm going to tell you, fellas, there's never a dumb question. Don't feel like I don't dare ask that on here because these other guys know this and that, and this will look stupid if I ask this, because we've all been there. We've all had to learn. Some guys learn easy. Some guys learn hard. Some guys have a natural knack for this stuff. Other guys have to learn it. So whatever pair of shoes you fit in, don't ever be embarrassed to ask me something, guys, because we've all been there. We've all done it. We've all made mistakes. And I'm always going to be there for anybody that wants to ask me a question, no matter what it will be. So I want to make that clear. But anyway, guys, I'm going to wrap this up. I'm going to call it a wrap on this for the combustion chamber, unless somebody does need to see more or have more questions. So I want to thank you fellas for checking these segments out and being interested in it and taking time out of your day, fellas. God bless you. And I always want to say that to you, is to let you fellas know how much I do appreciate you taking time to watch what I do. All right, fellas, have a good night. Take care.